Allan said, this would be a fabulous movie. And on the way home, in the car, this would be a fabulous movie. It'll be like Mickey and Judy do a musical. It'll be about these two guys, and not two guys, a guy and a girl, and they come up with this idea, and for the people who they see on the street in the village, and they create the village people. And so it'll be this guy, whoever this guy, and this guy, Jackie, it'll be you. It's Jackie Bisset and this guy, and they create the village people. And this was, by the time we got back to the house, he had the whole, and you will write it, he said to me. And so and Jackie and I looked at each other, and I said, I guess we're in. The next thing I know, they're making a deal. They're calling and they're saying, it's a story by Allan Carr, you can flesh out the script, and you're gonna have conferences, and Jackie is gonna star as the girl, and then there'll be this guy, young, undiscovered, unknown person who's gonna be the guy. So we start working on this thing, and it's and Jacques and Henry are there, doing musical ideas, and I'm writing the thing, and Bronte, who is still can't meet me at the Melba Maid. Bronte is brought in, so now the two of us are sitting there when we're writing the thing, and we present this thing to Jackie, and Jackie and Victor listen to it and all that, and they say, it's just not for me. I'm just not that girl. So Jackie goes away. So now Allan says, well, it doesn't matter because we'll get some fabulous guy to do the part. And he says, the next day he calls me up and he says, I've got it. I know exactly who can play the guy, the Jacques Marley part, Bruce Jenner. Okay, now Bruce Jenner has never acted. I mean, he's the Olympic decathlon. He's a man. And so after a few days, he says, okay, Bruce Jenner can't do that, but we'll get a fabulous woman. I've got another idea. Olivia Newton. Olivia will do it. So we go over to Olivia Newton-John's place, and she's got a manager she's involved with named Lee Kramer, and we pitch this thing. And at this point, of course, now with Olivia's involvement, it becomes all about this squeaky clean girl and the village people. And now I'm kind of liking the idea because the contrast between Olivia and the skanky village people, it's a little interesting that she would decide this is what she wants to do and all that. And there's much, and we rewrite, right? And much hemming and hawing, and she drops out. It's not going to be that. So now Allan says, okay, let's get the script written. So he says, here's what we're going to do. We're all going to go to Duke. We're going to go to Duke University to the Rice House, which is a diet place. And we'll all lose weight together, because Bronte was pretty pudgy. And the three of us are going to go. He rents a house in Durham, North Carolina. And we're all going to go there, and we're going to write the first draft of the script. And on the eve of our departure, another client of his, Nancy Walker, the actress, gets a pilot. He's going to have her direct a pilot for a TV show. It was called Madam Sheriff, and it never made it, but she was directing this, so he couldn't go. He had to stay and supervise the pilot. So Bronte and I are in Durham, North Carolina in February at the Rice House, where you're given 3 bowls of rice a day. We were the smallest people there by 250 pounds. And at this point, my agent said, you've written 4 drafts of this thing already. It's time you got paid for more. So they went to him and they said, he needs more money. And he fired me. He said, more money? I'm giving him the break of his life. What do you mean? I said, it's not like I'm writing from here to eternity. It's not like, come on. So I walked. I said, that's it. So I left, and he and Bronte took over, and they wrote the script. But of course, I remained on the sidelines as the thing developed. And every day Bronte would call and say, this is happening, Nancy Walker's directing it. Steve Guttenberg is playing opposite her. Bruce Jenner is back in. He's doing the boyfriend, the white collar lawyer boyfriend who she's gonna, it was hysterical.
Allan wanted Olivia Newton-John for the female lead of Can't Stop the Music, but she turned it down for Xanadu, which was another flop.
The first time I met her was at the house, and I was there, and there was a naked woman washing her hair in the utility sink in the laundry room, which was right off of the disco. And I thought, oh my God, that's so bizarre. There's a naked woman in there. And Allan goes, oh, this is Valerie. Don, meet Valerie. And she turns, and with her big boobs, and she says, "Oh, hi, Don." And I thought, oh my God, and I had just seen her like in some W.C. Fields movie, you know, kind of thing, and I went, oh my God, this Valerie Perrone, I've just seen her naked.
Bruce is a lovely person. And I think Alan saw that. And Bruce trusted him. And Bruce's life was kind of up in the air, and now we realize much more so than any of us knew. I had no sense of any of the anguish he was going through at all. And Bruce didn't know what he wanted to do, or what he wanted to be, or what he could be, or what, you know. And he often said to me, you know, I kind of thought maybe I'd get a lot of parts after that, and I didn't. I remember being lifted up because I was thinner then by then Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, lifted me up like I was his little sister. I don't know whether I'm younger. I'm not so sure that I'm younger, but we did go out one night, and he picked me up in a Porsche Targa. I was very impressed.
What is your role in the movie?
Mascot. I was the assistant to, I guess, Tammy? Yes, Tammy Grimes' assistant. They gave me my costumes, and I wore them to smithereens in real life, you know. And Jane Greenwood asked, did I have any color preferences? And a friend of mine, who's now deceased, Seth Allen, brilliant actor, said, go for Warner Brothers cartoons. And I believe it was black and yellow and red. And those were the colors. Isn't that great?
Great concept.
It's really, but that it was valued, that my input was valued.
Well, I'm from the Second City company, like the original company. And then eventually the same guy, the genius Paul Sills, put together the show called Story Theater, which was Grimm's fairy tales for adults, and they were really spooky and had great little orchestra. It ran good, and that's where I won the Tony Award for playing 11 different characters. I ran into him at the world's largest drugstore on La Cienega and Beverly Boulevard, and I bought toothpaste and toilet paper, and I was like going to and I heard this voice say, well, even legends carry around toilet paper, or something like that. And I thought that was kind of sweet to call the guy a legend. He says, and so then there was Allan Carr, and he said, how do I find you? I thought you were great in Main Event. You know, I did a movie. And I said, oh, thanks, that's nice. And I gave him all the information. And then he said, would you come up to the house? Because I want you to play this part in this movie. And I said, okay.
She was about 5 feet tall, big as a minute, maybe 4'11". She had little hands, stubby fingers. She always had a manicure, but she smoked heavy. So she had nicotine stains in between those two fingers where she held her cigarette. She told me one thing that I'd never, ever forget. She said, I had been having trouble with some lines or something, and she said, come have lunch with me in my trailer. Come have lunch. So I went over, and I was, you know, it was fun, and we were talking, and she said, honey, never, ever get worried about what you're doing. Just make sure you know the lines, make sure you're saying it, do the stuff do remember why you're here, and you're here because you're you. Do the stuff what you regularly do, just say the line. And she said, because really, a movie is nothing but little pieces of shit snipped together to make something pretty to look at. She was a terrific lady, and she knew how to sell a damn paper towel.
My favorite Nancy Walker directing Can't Stop the Music story is that they were shooting in New York City, you know, on the streets of the Village. They happened to be shooting at the same time as Cruising, which the gay people in New York were really angry about. They were giving Can't Stop the Music a pass, which, you know, take that for what it's worth, but they were mad about Cruising, so they tended to show up wherever they were shooting on the streets to like make noise and blow whistles and bang on pans and just completely ruin any sort of ambient sound that William Friedkin and his crew could could record. So apparently a mob of angry gay protesters show up at the Can't Stop the Music set, and Nancy Walker has to tell them, no, honey, it's 2 blocks that way.
Whenever you're doing a big budget film, it's a little bit more cushy. You know, where they stopped Times Square, they shut the whole thing down, put me in a set of roller skates, and rolled me down Broadway.
The number that I like the best is Milkshake. Milkshake is a commercial for milk, starring the Village People, and it begins, as I recall, with children dressed as the Village People. So you have what looks to be a 6-year-old dressed as a Leatherman. And it's all done with, oh boy, and yet it's a 6-year-old dressed as a Leather Queen. It's like, it's deranged.
The Village People, again, very popular group. No one was getting the fact that they were completely gay. Make a movie about them? What does Allan Carr do to maintain a family-friendly, PG-rated kind of, biopic for these guys? There's nothing gay in it, except that everything is gay in it.
The Village People certainly were one of the grandest, most glorious symptoms of that era, especially in terms of gay people hiding in plain sight, where I was in New York by then, and you thought, wait, doesn't everyone who sees these guys realize how gay this is and realize that this is a combination of Jean Genet and Tom of Finland and every cheap porn loop you've ever seen? And they didn't really, or they didn't until a few years later.
It's also the only PG movie, I think, that has penises in it. If you look closely in the shower scene during the YMCA number, they were not wearing the modesty socks or whatever. You also see Valerie Perine's breasts. There's a lot happening in that number.
I'll never forget dancing in an enormous auditorium in San Francisco with confetti and doing all kinds of choreography that seemed very simple, but it all came together.
San Francisco, being a big gay community as it is, held a lot of gay events in that place. So we shot in there. It was an unusual sight for me because I had never seen that many gay men in one place at one time, and they all looked alike. They were all stripped to the waist, had a handkerchief hanging out of the pocket. You needed to know which pocket it was to what it meant, but I didn't know. I didn't care, I was a straight guy. My whole crew was in there shooting. I mean, you would round a corner and here would be 2 gay men kissing with the kind of emotion that you normally, a straight guy is used to seeing between a man and woman. And, that would jar you a little. It was unusual for me and my crew, frankly. What I tried to do with it was kind of do a Las Vegas take with the lights. So I got a lighting guy from Las Vegas to come in and work the lights to give me all of the gimmicks that they use. And I put landing lights like they use in an airport on the window in back, shooting straight back into the building. And I had a window cleaner rig set so that it would climb from the floor up these 4 stories, and the light would come through the smoke-filled room and make that kind of a light effect. So I did a lot of, for me, fun stuff with lights. Plus I have a Steadicam guy to run across stage at certain times. On top of that, I had a crane go over the audience and do a thing over the audience. So to coordinate all of that, I had my hands full.
The night of the wrap party, we were in the soundstage of the apartment, this lavish apartment they had built for Valerie Perrine. And it was a gorgeous apartment. I thought, God, I'd love to have a place like this myself. And it was built in the soundstage that the famous MGM swimming star was Esther Williams, yeah. And so Allan made a point of telling everybody that if they are not taking in the surroundings tonight at the party, that they're really missing the moment. And for years now, when I talk to young kids or I talk to people in the show business, I always say, or if I'm producing a show in New York, I always say, you're missing the moment. And I got that from Allan because they were missing the moment. They didn't take in the ambiance of the studios and what all the famous movies. And he said, you're standing in the pit, the little patio area of that set was the actual swimming pool that Esther would swim in all those famous movies. So don't just think about this as a party for Can't Stop the Music. Take in the whole ambiance and really don't miss the moment.
And he said, I want to do something to make everybody know about it. I said, well, my uncle's Melvin Genser, and he owns a lot of the signboards on Sunset Strip. You can put it on a signboard. So the next day, he said, oh, that's great. Get a call from Norma Johnson at EMI, and we made the arrangements, and they took the signboard for several months. So all of a sudden, this $80,000 signboard, which was unheard of then, now it's nothing, but they had twirling dancers and lights, and Alan wanted his name bigger, so my uncle made his name bigger. Then my uncle had to make Alan's name smaller, and my uncle had to make his name smaller. And there was this wonderful party starting at the signboard, unveiling it, and then we walked down to Schwarz for cocktails, and then walked down to the Directors Guild to see 20 minutes of Can't Stop the Music. It was really good. Lord Lou Grade, Barry Spikings, all these English people that put up a lot of money. But once the movie opened, it wasn't the 20-minute clip, and it was not as exciting.
I went to see it. I took Bette Midler to see it. I remember we went to the El Capitan on Hollywood Boulevard, and we went to see it. And about 10 minutes into it, she turned to me and she said, "I'll stop the music." Oh, it was a disaster. I mean, it was just nobody went. It was, but worse than that, you know, for Alan, his taste was invalidated, you know, and that was it's a bad thing to happen to any producer, but it was the worst thing that could happen to him because that's what he was selling. Constantly. I know what I'm doing. I have my finger on the pulse. I am aware of all this. And of course, his finger was way off the pulse. You know, part of it, you know, like the old thing, just when I thought I climbed the mountain, they moved the mountain. Well, they had moved the mountain.
Disco had been bubbling up in the culture for a long time. But when it burned brightly, it burned so brightly that it had to flare out ultimately. And while they were making Can't Stop the Music, disco kind of waned, and it moved into the disco sucks, new wave is coming, we hate disco period. And so suddenly they had this disco movie on their hands, and they were going to call it Disco Land, I think, and they ended up calling it Can't Stop the Music. Disco kind of fizzled by the time Can't Stop the Music came out, and so that was tough because here you had this movie that really should have been a great movie musical that the audience was primed for, and it kind of fell on an audience that really was post-disco. They were ready for something completely different. And it's kind of sad because it kind of got lost in the shuffle in the way, you know, I mean, everyone thinks of Saturday Night Fever, but they forget that there are things like Thank God It's Friday, which was all right. But Can't Stop the Music deserves such a much bigger audience than it ever got.
And that's one reason why they couldn't wait to get it to Australia, because in Australia, the disco phenomenon was peaking, and the Village people knew this because that was one of their big markets. They sold tons of records in Australia long after the US and Canada had faded away. So they raced to get it to Australia because they knew it would be a big hit there, and it was. It didn't matter what the reviews were. They were at the right moment, and it hit, and they made a lot of money down there.
Alan could always say it was an award-winning film. It was the first Golden Razzie winner for Worst Picture of the Year.
He hired me. He gave me a great job. He gave me a great salary. When I was 20 years old, to be making the money I made was amazing. I bought my first house when I was 21. You know, and one of the reasons I was able to buy it was because of that movie. So I had a great deal of dedication to him. He was right about me. In my modest way, I succeeded. I did very well. It didn't work off of that movie, but I did get some other films that worked, and I've been able to make, I mean, partly because of him, I've been able to make a living as an actor, and I haven't been a waiter since I'm 18.